Welcome back to Turning Hard Times into Good Times. I'm your host, Jay Taylor, and I'm really pleased to have with me once again one of my favorite guests, F. William Engdahl. Thank you for joining me again, William.
Good to be with you again, Jay.
Always good to talk to you. You know, I want to ask you about an article that you wrote pertaining to Hillary Clinton's health, and that's one of the topics we want to talk about. But before we get there, I'd like to ask you a little bit about, we'll sort of pick up where we left off the last time I had you on the show. We talked a little bit about the CIA's attempted coup against the regime in Turkey, Erdogan's government, and it seemed very definitely that caused Erdogan to move towards Russia, and the relationship between the U.S. and Turkey was really, quite cooled down. Although I guess if you think about it, the CIA trying to overtake or overthrow a government, it wasn't exactly a healthy, happy relationship to begin with, perhaps. But I'd just like to ask you, before we get into this other topic, what are your thoughts now in terms of the relationships between Russia and Turkey and the U.S. and Turkey? Where does that stand?
There is huge, simply not disinformation so much as wrong information about what's going on between Turkey and Russia. After the visit of Joe Biden to meet with Erdogan, I think Biden's task was very simple. He was on a damage control mission to keep one from leaving NATO, and made major concessions about the U.S.-backed Kurds in Syria. To keep Turkey in the family, but the most telling thing, I think, to explain the state of Russian-Turkish relations is the fact that the energy ministers about 3 days ago of Turkey and Russia announced that they were ready to sign the first stage agreement for the construction of the Black Sea underwater Turkish Stream pipeline of Gazprom from Russia to Turkey that would go to the border of Greece. And then the European Union countries have the prospect, take it or leave it. If you want to have energy shortages, then leave it. But if you want to have secure energy supply, this is an option.
I can't imagine that's going over very well with our CIA and our military-industrial complex.
Not at all. The problem is Washington has maneuvered itself into such a stupid situation by their insistence on these series of wars. You know, the neocons, including Hillary Clinton, initiated the Arab Spring back when she was Secretary of State, 2011, 2012, before her brain concussion forced her to resign. And this was a lunatic venture. She took advice from sick people like David Petraeus, the former head of the Afghan operation, Afghan surge, the architect of the Iraqi surge. What a brilliant piece of stupidity. Right. And then the Psy-war propaganda of the neocons makes him into a great hero of victory. And then he becomes head of the CIA and forced to resign because he leaked very, very highly sensitive information to his lover, who by some accounts has ties with the Israeli Mossad. I can't verify that, but he certainly committed indiscretions of a level far less than what Hillary Clinton did with her private emails.
Right. But it's really fascinating. I want to ask you now, just another question comes to mind, William. You know, we're a new government in the Philippines also is turned extremely hostile towards the United States. What do you make of that?
I was in China. I was invited to China for the launch of my newest book called One Belt, One Road, the Eurasian Century and the New Silk Road Project. 2 weeks ago, and I was asked the same question by the Chinese. And Duterte is as yet an X factor in international politics. I think he's a man of the people in the way that Lula was in Brazil and so forth, coming out of the trade union movement. has a feel for what ordinary people are hurting from these oligarchs. His predecessor, up until the end of June, was from the Aquino plantation oligarch dynasty. Did everything the Americans demanded of him.
Exactly, yeah.
But then, as fate would have it, Aquino could not run again as president or prime minister. And so the free elections, there's a huge national sentiment in the Philippines that brought Duterte in as a fresh voice. Now, what is not yet clear is to what extent this is psychological, street fighter rhetoric. When he's attacked for his war on drugs. The war on drugs is very serious in Duterte's government. They've killed about 2,000 drug lords and pushers and so forth because he wants to eradicate this and he feels it very deeply. I think that will have an effect on the drug trafficking, no doubt. It may not be the most human rights conscious approach to it, but it may have more effect than George Bush Sr.'s war on drugs or anyone else in terms of drying up some of the sources. I can't say. I can't judge.
Yeah.
There is, I know from Philippine friends over years, there's a very strong Philippine good nationalist sentiment that get the American soldiers off our throat, get America out of the Philippines. They made us an American colony without giving us rights as a state in 1898 in the Spanish-American War, and since then we've had nothing but trouble from the U.S. presence. So they want, the ordinary Filipinos want an end to this, and I think Duterte's constituency reflects this.
Yeah.
Now, when Duterte comes out and the U.S. ambassador calls him on the carpet and says, "You're not obeying human rights with your drug campaign," and he goes out and says, "The U.S. ambassador is a gay son of a bitch." He's speaking to his people.
Exactly.
And he's saying, I don't care if he's the ambassador of the world's superpower. He's a son of a bitch, and I can say that. And he hasn't gone through the diplomatic, politically correct schools, that's for sure.
No, that's for sure. And I understand, William, that he is now demanding. The other day, he demanded that the U.S. get their base off of in southern part of the Philippines. That the U.S. remove their base. Yeah. That's serious business. That's serious business.
Yeah. And I think there are a number of signs. And the Chinese I spoke with are very cautious. They, want to not get led into some kind of trap or something, but they're very cautiously optimistic that they can make economic agreements and so with Duterte that will calm the tensions about the islands. And that will be to the good of world peace on all sides.
Well, I'm just wondering if this new leader may be seeing some economic advantages to cutting ties with the U.S. and perhaps seeing at least economic advantages for the people, if not for the ruling elite there. So anyway, all right. Well,
that's a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just wanted to get your thoughts on those two issues that have come to mind recently. That come into the fore of geopolitics recently. I think it's just really interesting to see that the U.S. is certainly not gaining popularity around the world as it wages its wars. But one person who could be counted on to wage wars, as we're just talking about her health, Hillary Clinton's health, and you wrote an article. Well, I think it's become pretty obvious to everybody, even those hardliners that wanted to support Hillary to the very end, that she has some very serious medical problems. And you wrote an article about mid-August that was really very timely, and now especially with the 9/11 event where Mrs. Clinton clearly could not stand up on her own.
She had her own 9/11. Her structure collapsed.
Yeah.
Really, to put it bluntly.
Okay, talk to us a little bit about your article and what you were passing on to people. I mean, people should be going to your website to read these things anyway, but perhaps you can just fill us in a little bit on some of the background. The evidence started coming out. There was a radio show in New Jersey. I think a Dr. Bardak was quoted or there was perhaps a medical report that was leaked, and then she later denied what she had supposedly had said. Not that she denied it, but the Clinton campaign denied it.
Claimed that she denied it.
Yeah.
And that's very different.
Yeah.
Well, the point is, if anyone has looked at, when you run for president, there are a lot of cameras that you cannot control.
Right.
And what was it, 292 days that Hillary Clinton did not give a live press conference?
Right.
December last year. And people began to say, well, what's going on? Here she wants the highest office in the land. Why doesn't she speak openly with the press? And not that Obama is much better, but it was becoming extreme. And then one after another, incidental YouTube films of Hillary having coughing attacks lasting up to 4 minutes long, slipping and falling. I saw one where she was getting into a charter jet and she was on level ground and she collapsed. It wasn't that she stumbled over a stair that she didn't see. She collapsed. Mm-hmm. And then I saw another one, and this, you can't fake this, where someone asks her a question, a press pool, and Hillary starts laughing hysterically, starts shaking her head back and forth, and smiling like a complete zombie. And the journalist looked totally freaked out, as she should be. And then she started smiling to kind of calm the thing down, I guess. I don't know what. But those are all classical symptoms of episodes of not only epilepsy, but Parkinson's. Mm-hmm. Now, what we know, and this is what I researched when I saw some of these videos, is that whatever her personal physician in Mount Kisco Medical Group, upstate New York, Lisa Bardak, MD, has said through the Hillary campaign or not said, what's clear are there are symptoms on the public record that look very scary. What is clear is a statement of her husband, Bill Clinton, in 2014, 2 years after she suffered a brain concussion from a fall as Secretary of State in December on Pearl Harbor Day. My goodness, December 7th, 2012. And 2 years later, Bill Clinton told ABC News her injury required 6 months of very serious work to get over. He claims it was over. But in February, she resigned abruptly as Secretary of State. No mention to her health problems. My conclusion is she couldn't handle the job as Secretary of State, and her husband advised her, focus on the campaign. I'll do the campaign for you. You just appear and smile at the right moments. Mm-hmm. So this is like Dr. Strangelove, Mach 10, if all this is accurate.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to say something about the 9/11 event in New York.
Yes, please.
Because, first of all, it's violating every Secret Service health procedure on the books that she was not rushed immediately to a certain pre-designated hospital for emergency care for the symptoms that she exhibited, passing out, collapse, muscle collapse, and so forth. And instead, supposedly brought to Chelsea's Midtown apartment in Manhattan, her daughter, from which she is claimed to have emerged 90 minutes later, smiling and greeting a little, 7 or 8 year old girl and smiling and waving and saying, I feel fine. Some people are even suggesting that was a Hillary double. But let's go to the pneumonia statement of her campaign after all this hesitation. They claim that Dr. Bardak diagnosed pneumonia on the Friday before the 9/11 event. But then, if Dr. Bardak did not order her immediately into emergency intensive care for pneumonia as a potential president, that doctor ought to be disbarred or what do you call it with a doctor?
License taken away. It should be. Yeah.
If that's true, it may not be true. It may not. It may simply be another Hillary Clinton campaign lie.
Yeah.
Which more and more is looking like the case. So they had to come up with something that people would. But these are not the symptoms of pneumonia when you have total leg collapse. These are not all the symptoms of pneumonia. And everybody in the world by now has seen that video. Who knows who took it? Some people say it was a New York NYPD policeman on duty who was, just making a smartphone video of the potential president and watched this happen and put it on the internet. Who knows? But it's there and it's undeniable.
Yeah, it's undeniable, and I think the campaign is starting to realize that it's undeniable. And I think that you had mentioned Parkinson's, and there is an excellent video, the link to which people can go to miningstocks.com. That's my website, and if they go down to scroll down the page about halfway, you'll see a section there in which it happens to be about the second link there now. Dr. Ted Noel gives a lengthy interview in which he's saying, look, I'm not her attending physician, so I can't say with complete certainty, but I have observed Parkinson's, and this woman, going back as much as 10 years ago, started to display some of the symptoms of Parkinson's, and that she could appear totally normal at certain times and then totally collapse at others is well within the early stages of Parkinson's. So, I mean, nobody wishes Mrs. Clinton ill will with respect to her illness, that's for sure. I certainly don't, and I'm no lover of Hillary Clinton, that's for sure. But
I think, Jay, that's not the issue.
No.
The issue is political responsibility by, if Hillary Clinton is not in a mental case situation to be responsible, certainly her husband and the people around her and the Democratic National Committee to say, ladies and gentlemen, this woman is much more severely ill. She may even die if she has another one of these seizures, as many medical experts have already said. And this is not, we're not going to continue this human sacrifice.
All right, well, William, maybe the issue is not really the person of the presidency, but rather the people surrounding the presidency and the power that they look to wield. And certainly, you mentioned the former president, her husband, and others. And if you believe, as I tend to believe, that the president is not necessarily the president, that there are powers, the ruling elite behind the president, the bankers, the military-industrial complex, and so forth, that they may have quite a problem on their hands here, because they certainly don't want to see Mr. Trump in there, who seems to be, at least on the surface, an anti-establishment guy. So, with 2 minutes left here, William, how should Americans be thinking about this? What should we be doing? How should we be planning to vote?
I think Americans should not be thinking in terms of the lesser of two evils, because that's always a trap. I think Americans should make a protest, maybe completely boycott the elections, 100%, and say, we want a new clean slate of human beings as presidential candidates that don't lie to us, that don't fake their health situations, that don't call for wars everywhere. And let's see who steps up, and let's postpone the elections for 6 months. Or 2 months, or whatever it takes. Yeah. It's doable. It's all doable. There are laws on the books that allow state of emergency. Unfortunately, they were made by people who want to create a police state after 9/11. But this situation, I think the boring old patriarchs, as I call them, the oligarchs, the David Rockefellers, the George Soroses, the Warren Buffett, they simply don't have a clue that the whole world that they built over the last 50 years or 70 years is collapsing.
It's tumbling down, isn't it, William? Unfortunately,
they don't have a clue.
Yeah, they seem to be clueless, but we're out of time. Unfortunately, it looks like we're just about out of time. Again, folks, William Engdahl, look him up, and the website, William, give it to us again so people will go there. WilliamEngdahl.com. Very simple. William Engdahl, ENGDAHL.com.
And
Excellent.
all my articles, my interviews, I have a free online newsletter if people sign up for that. And I'm about to offer paid podcasts on a monthly basis.